So, the Greens have been getting pretty popular lately apparently, or are we just being hypnotised? My boobs do feel a little bit bigger as it goes. Thanks Zach or David or, well, I never know anymore. But besides their weirdo in charge, I wanted to take a look at each one of their insane policies that the Greens are actually pushing and then dissect them for your entertainment. The Greens peddle this as a bold, compassionate vision for Britain's future. But cut through the fluff, these policies are just impractical. They're a roadmap to economic ruin, social chaos and eroded sovereignty. In this video, we're exposing the dangerous myths behind the proposals, breaking down why they fail spectacularly and asking, is this a serious plan or just a woke fantasy? But let's find out if Zach is playing with us or has fallen back into his acting career with his stupid policies. So first up, let's talk about the most reckless idea the Greens have come up with. Open borders. They want to fling the UK's doors wide open, no visas, no quotas and no controls. Everyone's welcome, no matter who they are and where they're from. They dress it up as compassion, claiming borders are inhumane. Sounds nice in a protest chant, but in the real world, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Britain's already buckling under a housing crisis. 1.2 million households are on the waiting list for social housing. The NHS is on its knees, with patients waiting months, if not years, for basic care or surgery. Schools are overcrowded, with teachers stretched thin. Now imagine millions flooding in every year unchecked. Public services wouldn't just strain, they would collapse. Hospitals would turn into a war zone, schools would be overwhelmed, and the housing market would quite literally implode. Not to mention the potential for the uptick in crime, of which we've already seen being reported all over the country. This isn't compassion, it's insanity. Economically, open borders are a nightmare for working Brits. The Greens love to tout GDP growth, but that's all just a mirage. Uncontrolled migration flows, low-skilled job markets, slashing wages for our plumbers, builders and shop workers alike. A 2018 Migration Advisory Committee report confirmed high, low-skill migration depresses wages in sectors already hit hard by globalism. Meanwhile, taxpayers, yes you, would be stuck funding the ballooning costs of welfare, healthcare and education for newcomers. Then there's the elephant in the room, social cohesion. Rapid, unchecked immigration risks fracturing communities. Integration doesn't happen by magic. It takes resources, shared values and a lot of time. Without controls, you get cultural clashes, rising tensions and eroded trust. A 2023 YouGov poll shows 60% of Brits want stricter immigration controls, not a free-for-all. Open borders aren't just unpopular, they are a betrayal of national sovereignty. And by the way, that poll was 2 years ago, so you can imagine what the number is now. So let's have a look at security. No vetting, no borders, that's a green light for criminals, traffickers and worse. The Home Office can't even track immigration now. Open borders would make it open season for chaos. As I mentioned in my previous video, of which you can watch here, they have somehow lost 50,000 asylum seekers. The Greens paint this as a moral crusade, but the reality, it's a reckless, unpatriotic pipe dream that would bankrupt services, undermine workers and destabilise Britain. Compassion doesn't justify throwing the nation under the bus. Next, the Greens want to axe the 2-child benefit cap, ensuring every kid in every family gets welfare handouts, no matter how many children parents churn out. They call it fairness. I call it a taxpayers funded disaster. The 2-child cap, introduced in 2017, limits benefits like universal credit to the first 2 kids in most families. Scrapping it was cost billions, 3.4 billion per year, and that's in conjunction with the Institute of Fiscal Studies. That's cash from hard-working Brits, including those who don't have kids or who budget carefully to raise small families. Why should they subsidise endless dependence? This isn't fairness, it's fleecing the responsible to reward the reckless. Then there's the incentive programme. Unlimited benefits could encourage larger families among those reliant on welfare, entrenching cycles of dependency. Scrapping it sends a clear message: have as many kids as you want, and of course the state will bail you out. This is more like an enabling policy. And let's be blunt, throwing money at families doesn't fix poverty's root causes. Poor schools, broken communities and lack of opportunity needed targeted solutions, not blank checks. The Greens plan ignores this, prioritising feel-good gestures over results. Fairness? What about the childless workers or small families footing the bill? They're focused to bankroll a policy that could deepen welfare traps, while their taxes skyrocket. This is classic left-wing nonsense. Big promises, bigger costs, and zero accountability. Where have we heard that one before? The Greens claim this is all about equality for kids, but the reality is once again just 2 fingers up to the taxpayer and common sense. I'm sure this policy is going to get Extinction Rebellion all rolled up. So now the Greens eco-fantasy generating 70% of UK's electric from wind power by 2030. Yes, you did hear me right, 2030. And by the way, that's nearly triple the current 26% that is being generated by wind power today. They sell it as a heroic charge towards a green utopia, but it's a logistical and economical train wreck. Wind power is a gamble. Turbines only work when the wind blows, and Britain's weather isn't exactly cooperative for the best of days. Calm days means no power, and no amount of wishful thinking changes that. You need backups, gas, nuclear or batteries. Batteries are wildly expensive and unproven at scale, not to mention the recycling disaster that I covered in this video before. Gas undermines the green goal though as well. And nuclear? Well, the Green hates it for some reason. So what's the plan? Well, they don't have one. Building enough turbines means carpeting our countryside and coast with thousands of new wind farms. That's billions in costs, grid upgrades, maintenance and all. Offshore farms aren't cheap either, and they're a nightmare to maintain. Germany, the poster child for wind, shows the risks. They've poured billions into renewables, yet their electricity prices are among Europe's highest, and they still lean on coal and gas to avoid blackouts. A 2024 International Energy Agency report warned that over-relying on wind risks grid failures. The UK's national grid has echoed this, flagging stability concerns. For ordinary Brits, this means one thing: higher energy bills. Families already struggling with inflation will get hammered, and businesses, especially manufacturing, will lose competitiveness if they sort of haven't already, you know. Jobs could vanish as firms relocate to cheaper energy countries, resulting in even more job and employment opportunities leaving the country in their droves. You know, just behind the millionaires and the middle class families now. So realistically, this is a costly, unreliable mess that could again plunge Britain into darkness whilst bankrupting many regular households. It's not bold, it's ridiculous. This is where the Greens completely lose the plot. Legalising all drugs. And no, that's not just cannabis. That's cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, you name it, the lot. They claim the war on drugs has failed. This isn't progressive, this is ridiculous and stupid. For sure, Portugal's decriminalisation reduced overdoses and HIV by treating drugs as a health issue. But the Greens aren't proposing decriminalisation. They want full legalisation, with production and sales open for business. That's a whole different beast. Legalising hard drugs risks normalising their use, especially among impressionable youth. Heroin and cocaine aren't craft beer, and a dependency upon them is a fast and brutal road. So imagine the fallout: addiction rates spiking, NHS wards overflowing, workplace accidents soaring. Picture lorry drivers or doctors high on legalised cocaine. So what's the public opinion? Brits aren't buying it. A 2023 YouGov poll shows 60% support of cannabis legalisation, but only 20% for harder drugs. This policy screams out of touch elitism, cooked up by ideologues who have never seen addiction in the real world. But to tell you the truth, it's a reckless experiment that could end up creating an addicted generation and bankrupt the NHS, and lastly alienate the voters. So crack on. Finally, the Greens want to ban domestic flights where trains exist, all in the name of cutting emissions. It's a classic eco-virtual signalling, but it's a slap in the face for ordinary Brits. Trains are slower and often pricier than flights, which makes no sense. London to Edinburgh, 1 hour by plane, 6 hours by train, with tickets that can cost double. For workers, families or businesses, that's a non-starter. This ban would isolate entire regions, gutting tourism and local economies. The UK's rail network is a mess. Delays, cancellations and overcrowded carriages. HS2, meant to fix that, is a bloated, over-budget disaster. Making trains a viable alternative requires billions the Greens haven't accounted for. Meanwhile, aviation is just 7% of the UK emissions, and domestic flights are a sliver of that. The carbon savings are negligible compared to the economic carnage it would cause. This policy isn't about the environment, it's about control, forcing Brits into inconvenient, expensive travel to appease eco-zealots. It's disconnected from the needs of real people who rely on flights for work, family and holidays. So in reality, this policy would only screw over travellers and regional communities for absolute minimal environmental gain. So when you look at all these policies together and the Green Party's manifesto, it is a masterclass in naive, radical idealism. Open borders would flood Britain, wrecking services and sovereignty. Scrapping the two-child cap is a taxpayers funded handout that fuels dependency. 70% wind power is an unreliable bill hike in fantasy. Legalising all drugs invites addiction and chaos. Banning flights isolates communities and kills jobs. So what's the common thread here? A complete disconnect from reality. These policies prioritise woke ideology over the needs of hard-working Brits. You know, us common folk. They ignore budgets, infrastructure and public sentiment, betting on utopian dreams that collapse under scrutiny. Governing isn't about grand gestures, it's about results. The Greens manifesto is a reckless wish list that would bankrupt the nation, erode social cohesion and undermine our way of life. It's not bold, it's dangerous and stupid, but then again it's Zach Polanski. So let's be honest, you voters deserve better than this. Britain needs practical, responsible governance, not experimental pipe dreams that prioritise feelings over facts. The Greens manifesto isn't a plan, it's a recipe for economic ruin, social division and a national decline. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, smash like, subscribe. If you're feeling extra zesty, then give me a little like on Patreon. It only costs $3 a month. Bye bye.